In September 2025, Minnesota's autumn air was thick with grief, not change. The familiar crispness of the season was replaced by a heavy silence, as if the entire state was holding its breath. The North Star State, known for its resilience and sense of community, found itself shrouded in uncertainty and sorrow. The leaves turned, but the usual anticipation of fall was absent, replaced by a collective sense of loss that seemed to settle over every town and city. The state was shaken by a violent act that tore through its political and social fabric. Sirens echoed through quiet neighborhoods, and the glow of emergency lights painted the night with fear and disbelief. News of the tragedy spread rapidly, leaving Minnesotans grappling with questions that had no easy answers. Conversations in coffee shops and living rooms turned somber, as people tried to make sense of the unthinkable. A special election on September 16th became more than a routine vote. It was a community's first step toward healing after tragedy. Lines at polling stations stretched longer than usual, not just with voters but with neighbors exchanging quiet words of comfort. The act of voting, once a simple civic duty, now carried the weight of remembrance and resolve. Each ballot cast was a small act of defiance against fear, a statement that democracy would not be silenced by violence. The catalyst, the shocking murder of House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark in their own home, was a political assassination that stunned the nation. The crime scene, once a place of family and warmth, became a symbol of vulnerability. Vigils sprang up across Minnesota, candles flickering in the autumn wind as communities mourned not just the loss of 2 lives, but the shattering of their sense of safety. The loss left a void in government and in the hearts of her constituents, who suddenly felt vulnerable and adrift. The Capitol, usually bustling with debate and decision-making, stood quiet, its halls echoing with absence. Flowers and handwritten notes piled up at the steps, tributes to a leader whose vision and compassion had touched so many. For many, the tragedy was a stark reminder of the fragility of democracy and the importance of unity in the face of darkness. This election was about more than policy. It was a referendum on hope, unity, and the soul of the community. People from all walks of life came together, determined to show that hatred would not define them. The campaign trail was filled with stories of resilience, neighbors supporting one another, strangers offering comfort, and leaders urging calm and compassion. The community's response became a testament to Minnesota's enduring spirit. Voters weren't just choosing a representative. They were rejecting hatred and searching for a leader who could help them heal. Each vote was a promise to rebuild, to honor the memory of those lost, and to protect the values that had long defined the state. The outcome of the election would shape not only the future of Minnesota's government, but also the path toward collective recovery. The stakes had never been higher for Minnesota. In the shadow of tragedy, the people of the North Star State stood at a crossroads, determined to choose hope over fear and unity over division. The world watched as Minnesota faced its darkest hour, searching for light and for leadership that could guide them forward. The special election was triggered by the shocking and brutal murder of Speaker Hortman and her husband, a tragedy that sent shockwaves through the entire state. The news broke late one evening, and within hours, the community was reeling, struggling to comprehend how such violence could strike so close to home and to someone so widely respected. The couple was targeted in their own home by an assailant who had gained entry by posing as a police officer. The attack was swift and merciless, leaving behind a scene of devastation that would haunt investigators and neighbors alike. The sense of violation was profound. If even the Speaker of the House was not safe in her own home, who could be? The violence didn't stop there. That same night, State Senator John Hoffman and his wife were also attacked in a coordinated assault, signaling a terrifying escalation of political extremism. The attacks appeared calculated, targeting those who had dedicated their lives to public service and leaving the entire political community on edge. The community's sense of safety was shattered, replaced almost overnight by fear, disbelief, and a deep sense of vulnerability. Town hall meetings, once routine, became emotional gatherings where residents voiced their anxieties and shared their grief. Vigils sprang up across the city as neighbors came together to mourn, support one another, and try to make sense of the senseless. Speaker Hortman was more than just a political figure. She was a neighbor, a mentor, and a friend to many. For over 2 decades, she had served her district with unwavering dedication, championing causes that mattered to everyday people. Her murder left an unfillable void, not just in government, but in the hearts of those who knew her. The empty seat in the House became a somber symbol of loss, a daily reminder of the tragedy that had occurred. Lawmakers walked past it in silence, feeling the weight of responsibility and the challenge to move forward in the face of such profound loss. The chamber, once filled with debate and laughter, now echoed with a sense of absence. Filling that seat was about more than just governance or political process. It was about restoring hope, unity, and resilience to a shaken community. The special election became a rallying point, a chance for people to come together and reaffirm their commitment to democracy and to each other. The next representative would need to be a healer as much as a lawmaker, someone who could listen, comfort, and inspire. The community was searching not just for a leader, but for someone who could help them rebuild trust, restore a sense of safety, and guide them through the difficult days ahead. In the wake of a turbulent year, two candidates emerged to lead Minnesota's 40B district, each representing not just a political party, but a vision for how to heal and move forward. Their campaigns quickly became the focal point of a community still reeling from recent wounds, searching for hope and direction. Each candidate offered a distinct path for a community grappling with pain and uncertainty. Residents gathered at town halls and community centers, eager to hear how these leaders would address the challenges ahead, restoring trust, rebuilding neighborhoods, and fostering a sense of belonging. The Democratic Farmer-Labor Party nominated X.P. Lee, a refugee whose journey from hardship to hope inspired many. Lee's life story was a testament to resilience, perseverance, and the enduring promise of the American dream. He spoke openly about his experiences, connecting with voters who saw in him a reflection of their own struggles and aspirations. Lee's campaign was not about personal ambition, but about a deep sense of duty to serve. His message centered on healing and unity, urging the community to come together in the face of hate and division. He called for compassion, understanding, and collective action to build a safer, more inclusive future. On the Republican side stood Ruth Bittner, a respected local businesswoman. Bittner entered the race with a deep respect for the legacy of her predecessor, Melissa Hortman, and a promise to provide steady leadership. Her campaign emphasized conservative values, personal responsibility, and a commitment to the district's economic stability. Bittner's platform focused on fiscal responsibility and practical experience. She argued that her background in business equipped her to make tough decisions, balance budgets, and ensure that the community's resources were managed wisely. For voters seeking stability and tradition, Bittner offered a familiar, reassuring approach. The race quickly became a defining choice: Lee's call for unity and healing, or Bittner's promise of steady, experienced leadership. Debates were spirited, with each candidate presenting their vision for the future and challenging the other's ideas. As Election Day approached, voters weighed two very different paths, one forged by trauma and hope, the other by experience and tradition. Conversations in coffee shops, churches, and living rooms reflected the gravity of the decision. Ultimately, the community's choice would not only determine its next representative, but also define the values and direction of its future for years to come. On September 16th, voters chose X.P. Lee to fill the seat left by Melissa Hortman. Lee's victory was more than political. It was a community's stand for healing and against extremism. High turnout reflected the deep investment in this moment. For many, Lee's win honored Hortman's legacy and signaled hope over fear. Even in defeat, Bittner's gracious concession showed that civility could survive in a polarized time. The election ended, but the real work, governing and healing, was just beginning. Minnesota braced for the challenges ahead. Lee's win created a 67-67 tie in the Minnesota House, restoring a delicate balance of power. With no majority, both parties were forced into an uneasy partnership. Every bill now required bipartisan support. Leadership and committees were split, making moderates powerful and partisanship less effective. Democrats regained the ability to block Republican initiatives. Republicans lost their brief advantage. The pace of lawmaking slowed, demanding real dialogue and compromise. Gridlock was a risk, but so was genuine collaboration. The state watched to see if this forced cooperation would lead to chaos or a new civility. Minnesota's future depended on it. The Minnesota election unfolded amid a national surge in political violence. The assassination of Hortman and her husband was part of a disturbing trend. Just a week earlier, conservative commentator Charlie Kirk was also killed. These attacks sent shockwaves across the political spectrum, fueling a sense of national crisis. Violence wasn't limited to politicians. A school shooting in Minneapolis further deepened the community's trauma. Fear and instability became the new normal, making the election feel urgent and defiant. Voting became an act of resistance, a stand against hatred and for democracy. The community's resilience was tested, but they refused to be silenced. Their participation was a vote for peace over violence. Democracy itself was on the ballot. XP Lee's candidacy was born from tragedy, not ambition. He ran because of Hortman's murder, determined to turn grief into action. Lee's mission: help his community heal, not push a partisan agenda. His background as a refugee gave his message of unity and peace real weight. Lee's campaign events became spaces for shared mourning and hope. He embodied the American dream, rising from hardship to leadership. His victory was a triumph of hope over despair, inclusion over exclusion. Lee became the leader his community needed in its darkest hour. After the election, leaders and citizens alike called for healing and an end to violence. Ken Martin, DNC chair and Hortman's friend, called Lee's win a tribute to her legacy and a plea for change. Enough is enough, he declared, demanding an end to political violence. Even Republican leaders recognized the need for a new tone, and Bittner's respectful campaign set an example. Community groups, faith leaders, and neighbors organized vigils and dialogues, rebuilding trust from the ground up. These grassroots efforts were as vital as political statements. The message was clear: healing required unity, not division. The community chose to move forward together. Their resolve became Minnesota's greatest strength. XP Lee's victory is a story of loss, but also of hope and resilience. It shows that even after tragedy, communities can reject hatred and reaffirm democracy. Healing Minnesota and America will take time and effort from everyone. The first step: unequivocally rejecting political violence. Leaders must condemn violence and model respect, even in disagreement. Rebuilding trust means engaging with those who think differently and rediscovering shared values. Democracy requires participation, empathy, and constant care. The people of Minnesota showed up, voted, and chose unity over fear. Their example is a lesson for us all. By choosing engagement and empathy, we can begin to mend our fractured democracy. The future depends on it.